Hi guys, welcome to this Figma UI design crash course. In this crash course, we are going to be building this very beautiful web landing page that you see here. And I'm doing this so that you can have a hands-on practical experience in order to build a complete website in Figma, even as a beginner. This particular crash course is for absolute beginner, people who are just getting started with Figma. In short, if this is your very first video in Figma, then you're absolutely in the right place. We are going to be going through a lot of tools in Figma. We're going to be looking at how to use the move, the scale tool, the pen tool. We're going to be going into typography. We're going to be going into spacing. We're going to look at the Boolean groups. We're going to create artworks and characters in Figma. We are also going to be looking at how we can work with auto layouts and also components. So we are going to be going a bit into the complex parts of this in the later parts of this video. So this crash course is a full complete course for anyone who is looking to go into UI/UX design. By the end of this course, you should be able to create a really beautiful and professional website in Figma. So if you find this video helpful or you find any of my videos helpful, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright guys, so here I've opened up a blank Figma file. All I did is to rename the page to Sunshine Harmony Therapy, since that's going to be the theme of the website we are going to be designing. So the first thing I'm going to do is to paste in the image of the website we are going to redesign. This is because if you're just starting out with Figma, it is best you try and redesign as many websites, as many existing websites that you can. So I'm going to go ahead to paste in the website we are going to be redesigning, which is this particular website you see right here. As you can see, it makes use of a lot of boxes and it is really colorful. So this is a really good example to get our hands going. And it's going to teach us a lot of things, like how we can draw out these vectors that you can see here, how we can create all these statistics. We can also animate all of these statistics. And by the end of this video, I'm very sure you would have gone from a beginner to a pro in Figma. So let's get started. So the first thing we are going to do, having our redesigned website on this, is to understand the tools that we need to get started. The first thing we need to click on is this frame tool here, which is going to allow us to bring in a desktop frame. If you're working on a mobile app, you can go ahead to select mobile, but this is a desktop application. So I'm going to go ahead to select desktop, which is 1440 by 1024, which is the width of the desktop application that we are working with. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this particular image to have the same width as this, so that we can have an idea on where the section starts and where the section ends. So I'm going to select this image and I'm going to change the width also to 1440. And I'm just going to move it to the side a little bit. So you can see that it also have the same width with the desktop frame we are working with. So once we have our image and our desktop frame to start working, you need to understand that there are different approaches to designing web pages on Figma. So if you're a little intermediate or you are a pro, you will make use of auto layouts a lot. But this video, we are not going to be making use of auto layouts. We are going to be going through this from scratch so that it can be understandable by absolute beginners. So clicking on your desktop frame, you want to zoom in. The first thing we want to do is to have a layout structure, right? As you can notice on this particular website, you can see that there is some space before and after the content, and you can see that it is consistent. Where this text starts is also where this box starts. It's also where the statistic navigation starts. And if you keep scrolling, you can see the contents particularly starts at a certain page, at a certain place on the page. So we are going to have a grid system on our desktop also that tells us where our content should start and where it should stop. So on clicking on our desktop, I'm going to go to layout grid. I'm going to select the layout grid. I'm going to open it up and I want to change this layout grid to columns. For the column, I want to change the count here to 24 and I want to give it a margin of 100. So having a margin of 100, you can see now that we have a grid layout that tells us that, okay, we have a margin of 100 on the left and 100 on the right. So we can now go ahead to start adding our content. So the first thing I want to do is to add the title of our page, just like they did here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click on this text tool here, and I'm going to start typing. I'm going to click on where I want to start typing, and I'm going to start typing here. I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to say sunshine therapy so that it's understandable. All right, so as you can see here, our brand identity, this text here is a little small, unlike what they have. So I'm going to come to the text section and increase the size to 16 pixel. I think that is still small. I'm going to increase it to 24. And I'm going to increase the font weight to bold. So once we have this, the next thing we want to work on is navigation links, just like you see here. So I'm going to go back to our website, and I'm going to hit T on the keyboard to switch to the text tool, and I'm going to start typing. So the first thing I want to type is, let's say, our services. So the services that we offer at Sunshine Therapy. I'm going to highlight this, and I don't want our navigation links to look like this. So I'm going to reduce the font weight back to regular, and I'm going to change the font size to 16 pixel. So having this, I want to have three more links. So I can copy this by hitting Command C or Control C and hitting Command V or Control V to duplicate it. As you can see on the layers panel, we now have two, even though they are placed on each other. I can click on one and drag it out of the way. Then I'm going to rename this to About Us. Having this, I can now duplicate it also by hitting Option or Command, click and drag outside. That's another way to duplicate. For this, I'm going to change it to Contact Us. And I'm just going to leave these three navigation links here on the top. So I'm going to select the three of them. One, I'm going to hit Shift on my keyboard or Command on your keyboard or Control, depending on what you use to select multiple items. I'm going to hit Shift, click on this, and also click on this. You can also come to this section here and select them by clicking on one, hitting Shift or holding down Control or Command, and selecting the rest. So once you have this, on the top here, on the top right here, I want to align them all to be vertical center. So I'm going to use this align vertical center to make sure they are all on the same line. Once I do that, I'm going to hit Ctrl G or Command G to group them. You can see they are all on one group. And I'm going to try and place them at the top where this particular layout grid ends, because that's where our content ends. So once I have that, I'm going to select both of these, the item and the brand identity. I'm also going to hit the same align vertical center so that they are all on the same line, and I'm going to use my arrow key to move it up a little bit more. So we have our top navigation bar, but one thing that might be different is you can see that in the website we are redesigning, the top navigation bar is white. But what happens when the top navigation bar for your own website is not white? Let's say it's a different color. So what you want to do is to click on this rectangle tool and then click and drag to create like a rectangle, right? It's okay if it doesn't get to the end. You can always adjust it to get to the end. So you can see that this rectangle have covered what we are working with, like the text that we have for our top navigation bar. So you can bring it down. You can see that this rectangle here is above our group. So you can click on this layer here in the layers panel and take it above this rectangle. So once you click on this and you move it to the top, you can now see that our text shows. So except for our brand identity, which is this sunshine, I'm going to click it and drag it also above this rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, our brand logo here, and this, and I'm going to use the arrow key to move it up a little bit. So regardless of what your top navigation bar is, regardless of the color, you can now come to the fill section here and change the color to whatever you want. We're working with a white top navigation bar, so I'm just going to select white, and we might not be able to see it because the background of our desktop is also white. So this is one way to create a a container for your top navigation bar, assuming it's a different color. So if it's like a light yellow color, you can just pick this, and you can see we have this. I'm going to turn off the layout grid a bit so you can see what we have. So if your top navigation bar is a different color, you might want to do that. So I'm going to turn on the layout grid back, and I'm going to return this top navigation bar to white. So another way to create this top navigation bar is using a frame, because you can see here we have rectangle and we have these two texts. What we can also do is to select both of these, which is the top alignment and this sunshine, and hit Ctrl G to group them together, so that if we are moving one, we get to move everything at the same time. Then we can also select this rectangle and select the group also, and also group it with Ctrl G. Now we have only one group, and we can just rename this to navbar, right? So that if we want to move this, we can just move it around and we have everything contained in a single place. So if you take it outside of the desktop, you can see that it looks like this. So I'm going to revert this back, and I'm going to ungroup this by right clicking and clicking on group. So we have our group, which have our text and our top navigation item. Then we have our rectangle. So another way to create your navigation, aside from using a rectangle, I'm just going to turn off this rectangle by clicking on this eye icon here. Another way to create this is to use a frame. Just like we have our desktop frame, you can also come here and select a frame, then drag your frame, just like we created our rectangle, click and drag to the edge of the screen. The only difference is once I do this, you can now see that this frame automatically contains our group. Now you can see that everything here is in the frame that we just created, both the group and the rectangle. That is because we drew the frame across an existing element. So the existing element is now inside the frame that we just drew, which is another really nice way of creating your top navigation bar. So I'm going to select this. All you can just do is, once you select your frame, you can hold down Command or Control, then click and drag to reduce or increase the size, which is really nice. We can also come to the fill section and add a fill to your frame. So if you want it to be red, or you can have this light color here, it's also really cool. So you have this particular frame, you can see. Remember, we still also have our rectangle inside of this. You can click on the rectangle and take it off. So now you have this really nice frame that is outside here. You can bring it back into your desktop, and you can just position it nicely at the top. But remember, our top navigation bar is white, so I'm just going to take it to white. I just wanted to show you guys both ways, the approach of using a frame to create your top navigation and the approach of using a rectangle. So the next thing, aside from our top navigation bar, is going to be this section here. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 boxes. We are now going to go ahead to start drawing our boxes. So as you can see, the first box here covers like 60% of or 70% of this frame. So what we are going to do is to just click on our rectangle tool. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and then we are going to start drawing. Remember that this rectangle starts from where this grid layout starts. I'm just going to click and drag. So I'm also going to adjust this a little bit more to get to somewhere like this. And I'm also using what we have here as a guide. So I'm going to increase it a little bit more, and then I think this is okay. So once we have this, the next thing is to get the color of this. So I'm going to select this, the rectangle we just drew, click on this fill, and then select this color. So I'm clicking on this icon here. Let's us select any color on our dashboard. So I'm going to click on this color to get the color. So once we have this, the next thing we want to have is the rounded corners of this rectangle here. So I'm going to come here and select a rounded corner of, let me say, 28 pixel. And I think this is okay. So the next thing we're going to do is to draw out this particular rectangle, the small ones on the edge. I'm going to select this rectangle and I'm going to draw it out just like this. and I think this is a yellow color, so I'm going to click on the color selection tool and select this yellow color. I'm also going to duplicate it by holding Option or Command, clicking and dragging to the bottom. So you can also notice that once I drag to the bottom, you can see a red stroke between the blue rectangle and this yellow rectangle. This is showing us that they are now aligned to the bottom, and I can now drop it there. So once you have that, I'm going to adjust this a little bit to 204 for the height. You can see here, and I'm also going to make the height of the first one the same thing, 204. Now, I'm also going to adjust this one to hit the top. At the bottom, you can see a red line showing us that we are at the top. And I think this is okay. The next thing I want to do is to add a border radius to both of them. So I'm going to select this and also select this, select both of them. And I'm going to add a border radius of 24. So once you have this, the next thing I want to do is to change the color of this second box. So I'm going to select this, go to Fill, and then change the color of this box. So this is coming out nice. We have our sections for the first box, the second, and the third. Now we're going to this bottom section here where we have this long rectangle. Just like the way we've done for the rest, we are going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to our rectangle tool here, click on it, then click from the beginning here and drag it all the way to the end. If you don't get to the end, it's okay. You can always readjust it to get to the end. So once you have this, I'm then going to also round up the corners, just like the way we see here. I'm going to round up the corners. I'm going to give it a rounded corner of 28 pixels. And I'm also going to make the color the same color as this. So I'm going to go to the fill, select the fill, and then select these colors. So with this now, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the layout grid that we have on our desktop website. And I'm going to come to this layout grid section and turn this eye icon off. So this is coming out nice. We can see that we have our layout looking like this. The next thing I'm going to do is to start adding our text. So we will now start working with our text and different font sizes and font widths. So for this, you can see that this website is written in a different language other than English. But for me, I have a document here that is like an English translation in terms of what I want our website to have. So I have the hero section, the statistics. Do you feel any of this? And all of these sections ready to use, which is really important when you're working on a UI design. When you're working on a UI design, you want to have your informations or your content ready so that the content or the informations that you have is what is going to give you an idea on how you're going to lay out objects on your screen and how you're going to present this website. Because basically what a website is just trying to give you information in a way that it is very user friendly and you can navigate through to find what you want. So first I'm going to copy this first text here, go back to our designs. I'm going to select this text tool, click on it and paste it here. Now I want this particular text to be a lot bigger, so I'm going to select on the text section here, I'm going to change the font size to 48 and I'm going to reduce it up to this level. I think 48 is quite a lot, so I'm going to drop it down to 42 and I think this is not bad. So I'm going to increase the font weight also to bold. I'm going to click on these three dots here and I'm going to change the font formatting to capitalize each word. That is title case. I'm also going to close this down and I'm also going to copy the subtitle, which is this here. I'm going to come here, click on text or hit T on your keyboard and also paste this. So for this, you can see we have an extra space here. I'm just going to hit the backspace button. For this, it's not going to be this big. I'm going to drop it down to 18 pixels and I'm going to reduce it to bold. So I'm going to just have this sitting right below our title. I'm just going to adjust it properly. I think this is okay. So we're also going to add the text for both of these. Then we're going to go ahead to create our image and then bring in our shapes. I'm actually excited about this image section because this image section is going to teach us a lot of things. So if I select a rectangle here, you'll notice that if I select more than one rectangle, we have an additional option here in Figma. And if you're watching this video and at this point, Figma have redesigned their website because currently Figma have had an overall redesign of their particular UI and it's not reflecting yet because they are rolling out this feature gradually. But regardless of what time you're watching this video, I'm sure you'll be able to find this icon probably on the right here. So if you select any of these boxes, let's say you select two shapes here, you should be able to see the properties for that shapes where you can also see these particular Boolean groups and you can have different properties. So I'm showing you this because to create these shapes that we are going to be creating and this particular artwork that we are going to be creating, we are going to make use of these particular properties here. We're going to make use of these particular properties here and I'm going to teach you guys how to use it because this particular crash course is going to walk through how to use every single Figma tool. So guys, let's continue. So the next thing is to add the text for both of these. And for those texts, I think I've had the text here. The first one says choose a specialist. I'm going to copy that text, hit T on my keyboard and write the text here. Choose a specialist yourself. I think I'm going to increase the font to 24 and I'm going to drop it down like this. No, I think 24 is too much. I'm going to reduce it to 18. Yeah, I think that was okay. I'm going to select this, hold Option and duplicate. But for this blue, I'm going to, you can see that this text is under our rectangle, our blue rectangle. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to bring it to the top. We can also start renaming this so that we understand what we are doing. Here I can say blue shape, blue rectangle. So I'm going to change this to white and I'm going to rename the text. I think here we have take a test in our content. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to come here and paste it in. So the next thing in terms of text that we are going to be working with is this particular text section. So I'm going to go ahead to also copy this 1000 plus. I'm going to come here, hit T on my keyboard and I'm going to paste this. I'm going to select this. I'm going to make it really big. I think I'm going to use 28 pixel. What about 48 pixel? That's quite big. Let's see how that works. So I'm going to just leave this here and I'm going to duplicate it 4 times, I think. Yeah, so for the second one, we have 95%. For the third one, we have 15 years. And for the fourth, we have 500 reviews. So when building a website, typically you want to have either your reviews or your statistics at the top, or you want to have a social proof where you have lists of clients that you've worked on. This is because it easily gives the users or whoever is visiting your website some sense of trust that, okay, I've been able to see like some achievements that you've had, or I've been able to see top brands that you've worked with. So it's really important. And that is why most websites have this information at the top of their page, which is above the fold. So the next we're going to do is to bring in the subtext. So I'm going to just hit T on the keyboard again. I'm going to come here, copy this subtext, and I'm going to paste it here. It's not going to be this big, so I'm going to select it and change the text to 16 pixel. I'm just going to put it at the bottom here and reduce it a little bit more. So I'm going to hold Option, click and duplicate. For 95%, I'm going to select all of this and paste it. I think this text gets longer as we go, so you're just going to try as much as possible to adjust this to accommodate the space that we have for this section. So I'm going to copy this, click on this, do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate and paste. So I'm going to click on this, duplicate it, come here and do the same thing. So looking at this space that we have, I think 16 pixel will not work. So I'm going to select all of this text that we just added and I'm going to change it to 14 pixel. I'm also going to reduce the font weight to light so that it's lighter. Then here I'm going to increase this a little bit more because I want it to have a minimum of 3 lines. So I'm just going to align them properly. So what you want to do to make sure this is properly aligned is select this and select the subtitle here, and you can come here and click on this alignment tool that says align left. Once you have that, you can now group them together with Ctrl G. But before you group them together, you can also come to this section and also give it a uniform spacing. So here we can use, let's say 14 pixel for the uniform spacing. We can now group them together by hitting Command G or Ctrl G if you're using a PC. We're going to do the same thing for the next one here. I'm going to select both the top and the bottom item. The distance is going to be, the spacing is going to be 14, and then I'm going to align left and I'm going to group it together. Before I group it together, I'm going to remove this extra spacing at the bottom here. I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to group it together. I'm going to move it to the left a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing for the next. Select both of them. The spacing between them is going to be 14 and I'm going to align left. I'm going to hit Command or Ctrl G to group them together. I'm going to do the same thing for the last item here. I'm going to do the same thing for the last item here. The spacing is going to be 14 and I'm going to align left and I'm going to group them together. So we have all of these statistics all here. So what you can also do is to select this, select every single one of this group, like all 4 groups that we have. You can now use an alignment tool to align top so that everything is aligned properly to the top, which is good. And also you can come here and tidy up. Right, so once you tidy up, you're going to see that we have our spacing option and you can now space them out equally. So we can use a spacing of 46. So as you can see, all the spacing between here is 46, here is 46, here is 46. Now we have a section looking like this. It's not exactly like this yet, but it is looking like very similar to that and it is coming out really nice. So guys, we've been able to make a lot of progress for our hero section of this website. The next thing we want to do here is to start working on the shapes and our icons. Alright guys, so at this point we can go ahead to start drawing our vector and bringing in our shapes and our icon. But first, as you can notice, I need to make this text at the top here a little bold. So that it matches what we have. So I'm going to change it to semi-bold or bold. I think if I'm going to use bold, I'm also going to reduce the line spacing, or I'm going to reduce the letter spacing, sorry, so that it becomes more compact, right? This works when you're dealing with a large text. So even this title we have here, it's going to be nice if we reduce the letter spacing, just so that it looks a lot cleaner. This is a technique people use in UI design that makes their UI really good. When you have a really large text, you want to reduce the letter spacing. But you also want to know how much to reduce so you don't have a text that is difficult to read. So let's go ahead, let's go to our shapes and icon. So to start working with the icons, what I'm going to do is to click on this resource tab here. If you click on this resource button, you're going to see we have components and we have plugins. We are not working with components. We're going to talk about that later, but for now, we are just going to go to plugins, and you can go ahead to search Iconify. Once you have this, it's going to bring up this, and you're going to click on it. And from here, we can pick or select from tons of icons. I use this plugin a lot, and it's also going to help you a lot. So from here, we can search for arrow. You can see I already searched, but I'm just going to go ahead to search for arrow. So once you search for the arrow icon, what you want to do is to click on next until you see the specific icon that you're looking for. We have something similar here, but I want something that is facing either the left or the right. So I'm just going to keep scrolling, and I think I have this here. So I'm going to select this particular one, and I'm going to import this. So once we import this, I'm going to click and drag it into our desktop frame. But as you can see that this particular arrow is facing left, and in our designs, this is facing right. In order to make this face to the right, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. You can now see that it's facing right. Now what we need to do is to make it bigger. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to click on this chain icon so that I can scale both the height and the width simultaneously, and I'm going to give it a size of 68 pixels. I think this is okay, and I'm just going to drag it to the edge of this a little bit. So once we have this, I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to create a duplicate and also place this just below here. But on the blue here, I'm going to change the selected color from black all the way to white. I'm also going to make this text balance on it a little bit more, and I'm just going to adjust the positioning a little bit. I think this is okay. We have something very similar to this, although I think this is a lot bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase this so that it's a lot bigger. I'm going to make it 72. So I think this is okay in terms of our icon. So we do have our icon, and the next thing we want to bring in is the shapes. And there are two ways to achieve this. Either we draw out the shapes, or we source for the shapes on the Figma community. Since we are going to be drawing out this image ourselves, we can also look into how to source for things in the Figma community, and this is a really good example. So I'm going to go to this home section. I'm going to go back home, and here on the home section, I'm going to come down to explore community here. I'm going to click on explore community, and I'm just going to wait for it to open up our community tab. So in my community section, what I want to click on or search for is shapes. So I'm just going to type in shapes, and I'm going to click on enter. So here we have a number of cool shapes, but I think this is going to give us what we want. So I'm going to select this cool shape option that I see here. I'm just going to select this, and it's going to open it up. I'm going to open in Figma. So it's going to ask us which file or which projects do we want to open this in. I'm just going to select the first option here. So once we have this, I'm going to come down to main components, come to the main components to see the main components of this shape. So you can see we have some of the shapes that we are looking for, and I'm just going to go ahead to select this. This looks like what we want, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come to our artboard, and I'm going to paste this. I'm going to paste this right here. You can see it has like purple line or purple stroke around it. This is because it is a component, and what we are going to do is to detach it from a component since we've not started working with components yet. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to come to detach instance. So once we detach instance, we now have this as regular elements that we can go ahead to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also hit this chain or this constraint proportion icon here, and I'm going to reduce this to 60 pixels. I'm then going to drag it up into this box. I'm going to do the same thing for this section. I'm going to go to cool shapes, and I'm going to go and look for the equivalent shape. Let's look at it again and see what we are looking for. Something that looks like this. It doesn't have to be 100% like this, but we want it to be very close. So for me, I think this is actually close. Yeah, I think this is close. So I'm going to copy this again. Come here. I'm going to paste it in our designs. I'm going to detach its instance, and I'm going to reduce the height and the width to 60 pixels, and I'm just going to place it at the top here. Now we have our shapes. I'm going to go ahead to change the color of this. I'm going to select it, come to this selected color here, which is white that we have here. I'm going to select the eye icon here, and then click on this selected color. I'm going to leave this second one as white. So we have this. You can see that our design is coming out nice. Now it's time to create this particular image. So for this particular image, we are going to spend some time drawing this image. And to do this, I'm going to be teaching you guys the use of some amazing tools. Like here, we're not going to go into the pen tool. We're going to make use of the pen tool. And if you click on this and this, we're also going to make use of this Boolean section here that allows us to merge and performs some special operations with shapes. So by the time you learn this, you're going to have a broader understanding of the number of things you can do in Figma, because up to this moment, what we've been working with is rectangles, shape, and text. But there is so much more you can do, and we are about to go into that with an attempt to draw out this image. So if you already have idea of how to do this and what you just want to do is to learn about the basic layout, I'm definitely going to be dropping the link to this particular file where we already have the designed image and everything, so you can just go ahead and get the assets and follow along with this video. So I'm going to put a timestamp to where you can skip to the next part of this video so that you don't waste time drawing this image. This particular image that I'm going to draw here is geared towards absolute beginner, to give them the context of how you can make use of some additional tools in Figma, because the idea of this crash course is to walk us through as many possible tools in Figma and get our hands really strong. Alright guys, so let's start with an attempt to recreate this image that we see here. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. You can see that basically these are two shapes. We are going to start with this brown looking one, or this orange looking one. As you can see, this is a shape, but if we go to our shape menu, we really don't have a shape that can help us achieve this. So thankfully, we've been able to check out this cool shapes community file, and I think we can get something that works from here. And if I zoom in, I think some of these shapes can actually do a really great job. I think I'm going to get this one with the sharp edges. So I'm going to take this particular shape, I'm going to copy this, I'm going to come here, and I'm going to paste this. First thing we are going to do is to right click and detach its instance. Once I've done that, I'm going to select, because this shape is contained in a frame, so I'm going to go in to select just the frame. What I'm going to do here is to duplicate this frame. I'm going to copy this and paste it again. So you can see that I have two vectors in this layout. So I'm going to select the uppermost one, the top one, and I'm going to come to the edge here. And once my cursor have changed to this cursor, I'm going to click and drag just to change the direction of this. And I'm going to try and drag it until it gets to the middle of this. So we have something that looks just like this. So once I have this, I'm now going to select both of these vectors, selecting, hold down shift or control or command based on how you multi-select on your system. And I'm going to come to this section here where it's a Boolean groups. Here I want to now make this a union. I want to combine both of these layers together. So once I do that, we now have a shape that looks like this. So once I have this, what you can now do to get your edges to be curved just like this is to go to your border radius or corner radius here and just increase it up to like 20. Make sure you're selecting this union here and not the frame that it is encapsulated in. Make sure you select this union, and we can give it a radius of, let's say, 20. I think 20 is too much, so I'm going to drop it down to 8. I think 8 is decent. So here I'm going to then select this, and there's two ways to make this work. One is that we can copy this polygon here as an SVG, so you can just come here and copy as SVG. Once you copy as SVG, we can then paste it, and here we have just a vector shape that we can scale. So here with this, if you select this paste that we, if you select this item that we just pasted here, if you increase it to, let's say, 400, you see that it increased equally and we still maintain our shape. But with this that we have the union, if you click here and increase it to 400, you'll see that it's now reverting back to our shape because it's being distorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and I'm just going to remove this so that we can work with this one that we converted into an SVG. So here we have a shape that looks like this. I'm going to reduce it down to 360. Another way you can use to reduce your vector items or your group of items equally is to come to this move section, select it, and select scale. You can see it's also K on the keyboard. You can also click K on the keyboard. And you can click from the edge here and drag evenly. You can see that it scales all your item evenly. But I'm going to revert back and I'm going to just see if this works. I'm going to reduce it to make sure it looks similar to what we are trying to achieve. So I think this is okay. I think this is okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and for now I'm going to remove the fill. I'm just going to add a stroke so that we just see the outer layer. Now we are just going to use our stroke to draw these particular lines, which is quite easy. There's two ways also to do this. There's different ways. You can come here and click on this ellipse tool, which is this shape, and just draw a shape or a circle here. So I'm going to draw a circle that looks like this. I'm just going to reshape it to look something similar to this. Of course, I'm going to curve it a little bit. You can go ahead to use the pen tool to draw this, but I like to use something like this because it is a lot cleaner. So once we have this shape, I'm just going to use this arc here, draw this. I'm just going to click and drag it. So I'm going to drag it to where it ends and also to where it begins. All right? So you're going to use both of these dots to control where you want it to start and stop. So I think this is okay. Now I want to keep only this bottom stroke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this middle and I'm going to drag it in just like this. So once I have something like this, I'm going to go to the border radius and make this, or the corner radius, let's say 100. Then I'm going to change the fill to black. Now once we have this, all I have to do is to click Alt to duplicate this. So I have two of this just like this. So I also want them to overlap on each other. So I'm going to make it look like this. I'm going to select both of these and I'm going to hit Ctrl G to group it. So once we have that, the next thing we want to do is to draw out this particular smile here. For this, we can use the pen tool. So I want us to use a variety of tools so that we understand a lot of tools and how we can use them here in Figma. So here I'm going to use the pen tool for this. I'm just going to start drawing from here. I'm going to click and drag. As you can see, I'm going to come to a section like this, also click and drag. Then I'm going to come to this final section and click. Right? So you can also come before you get to the final section here, click and drag a little bit, then click here. So once you're finished, I'm just going to double click. And for the stroke, I'm going to make the stroke like 4. And then I think this is okay. Then for the edges of the stroke, you can see here, I'm going to make the edges round. And I'm also going to make this edge round. So you can see we can also draw this smile while we can use the circle to create that particular shape. I'm going to click here and I'm going to draw something also just like this. Good. So here I'm going to go back to our move tool or hit V on the keyboard. I'm going to select this and also select this, and I'm going to hit Ctrl G to group this. Once I have this, I'm going to click on this particular frame and I'm going to move it out of the way. So I was drawing it on top of this, just so that we can easily trace out what we need. So once I have this, I'm going to go back to select our vector file here and change the fill from white to this color and then remove the stroke. So once we have this, I'm going to shove this. Once we have this, I'm going to select this, of course, the entire frame here. Of course, the entire frame here, and I'm just going to move it here to the end of this. But before I do this, you can see that this particular artboard cuts between. You can see that this particular item is feeling like it's inside this blue rectangle box here. And in order to achieve that, we are going to make use of frames. Remember when we use frames for our top navigation here, and we had to fit all the items in it. We are going to do the same thing with this section. So this section, we have our text section, we have this text section here, and then we have this rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the rectangle and also the items in it. So here I've selected the rectangle and both of these items. I'm going to right click and I'm going to come to this option that says frame selection. I'm going to click on this, and what it's going to do is that it's going to contain all those items that we selected in a frame. So we have this rectangle, this text, and this text in this frame. So I'm just going to rename this to blue, or we already have one blue. I'm going to say main blue hero section. So as you can see here, we have a frame, but I'm going to then pick this particular shape we just drew and shove it into the frame. Now you can see that this frame, it's inside this main blue hero section. So I can now select this and move it to the bottom a little bit more. But you can see that it is still overflowing out of this frame, and what we want to achieve is something like this. So I'm going to select the frame and I'm going to click on clip content. So what it does, it basically hides everything that overflows in a container, right? So we can now see that we have this particular cut effect that we had here in our designs. So you can see that this particular smile is looking very crooked, and that is the reason why I don't like using the freehand pen tool. Instead, I will still rather choose to draw out this with an ellipse tool, which is quite easy like we did. I'm just going to make this, bring this here just like this. I'm going to click on these dots. I'm going to click on these dots and draw it out up to this point. I'm going to click on these dots and draw it in just like this. I'm going to make the rounded corners 100 and I'm going to change it to black. So I'm going to delete this existing one that we have here, and I'm going to move this down a little bit, as it is a lot cleaner. So you can see, guys, that is actually a lot cleaner. So we have this. The next thing we are going to draw out is this next shape here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And this also is quite easy to draw. So what we are going to do is to create one of these shapes. I'm going to click on this ellipse tool. I'm going to zoom in. I'm just going to adjust the shape and turn it over just so that it looks exactly like this particular eyeball that we have here. So I'm going to draw this out. So I'm doing this just so that you guys understand how to use some of these Figma tools and the concept behind the tool, so that if you try to achieve some things later in future, you have like a blueprint and an idea of how to achieve this. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw out just one eye, then you're going to duplicate this. So once you have this, a shape that like fits on it, you see, that traces out this eyeball perfectly. What you want to do is to duplicate this. I'm going to copy and paste. So I have another duplicate of this. For this, I'm going to change the color to black. And the idea is that so that it fits the black eyeball. So I'm going to remove the fill of this and make it stroke. For the stroke, I'm going to make it red just so that we can see what we are doing. Then for this black section, I'm just going to create it and make it look like this. So once I have this, I'm going to go back to fill this particular one, turn on the fill section, remove the stroke. Now I'm going to select both of this. But before I select both of this, I'm going to select this particular one, the gray one, and create a duplicate, because the effect you're going to make is going to distort some of this. So I'm going to select this black and the gray together. I'm going to come here, and what I'm going to click on is the intersect selection. So I'm going to intersect selection, and what it does is it only shows us the intersection between this circle and this circle, which is this middle ground here. So I'm going to select both of them again, come here and click on intersect selection, and that is how you make use of intersect selection. So for that, we now have this black dot, but you can also see that we have this little rounded corner here, and we are also going to do some things to achieve that. So I'm going to take this out. Since we've achieved this, what I'm going to do is to then bring in another duplicate of this. I'm going to copy and duplicate this. What I'm going to do is also to make it, let's give it this particular color. And for this, the first gray one, or let's give it a black, let's give it a black color. And for this gray one, I'm also going to hide the fill and give it a stroke, a visible stroke of red, so that I can see where this actually starts from. So I'm going to select this and make it a little bit wider, just like this. Great. So I'm going to select this back, turn on the fill and remove the stroke. Now I want only this section. Of course, we are also going to use the intersect. So I'm going to intersect this. So we have this and this. Now we are going to basically put all of these sections together. I'm going to click on this first one. I'm going to give it the fill of this here, and I'm going to move it here. Then we're going to bring this. Remember, we're also going to give it a stroke. Let me make the stroke like 4 pixels. Then I'm also going to bring this into the picture here, and I'm also going to bring this. This is going to be this particular color. Then I'm going to drag it also to the top here, and I want to make sure it's at the top from this layer section here. Then I'm going to just position it properly, just like this. It also has a stroke, so I'm going to give it a stroke of, let's say, 3 pixels. I think that's a lot. I'm going to make it 2. So now I'm going to select A. I'm going to select all 3 of them and hit Ctrl G to group them. So you can see that we have something that looks very similar to this, but we have some adjustments to make. I'm going to move this at the top a little bit. Okay. And this main one, I think I'm going to reduce the stroke to 3 pixels and bring this down a little bit more. So now we have this, right, which is looking nice. We have our eyeball, and we can create a duplicate of this to achieve just 2 of this. So the next thing we're going to do is to create this little curve at the top here, just like we've been creating with others. We can use our circle, scale it down a little bit. Just try to adjust it here. I'm going to make my circle a little bit more curved. I'm going to curve this just like this. Yep, and I'm going to draw out this stroke, picking that dot, and I'm going to do something like this. and I'm going to draw it. I'm going to make this 100 and I'm going to make the fill black. So I'm going to have this eye, I'm going to place it back here, right? And I'm going to click Command C and Command V to paste, and I'm going to create another duplicate and put it here. But remember, the first one should be above this. So it's going to look something like this. I'm going to also duplicate this particular thing here. So we have this. So the next one we are going to be drawing is also the smile. For this, I can copy this and just turn it to have this particular effect. So we have something like this right here. Yeah, so I'm also going to duplicate this, bring it here, and also turn it to give us this particular smile effect. So the next is this very big and wonderful smile here. So I'm just going to create this circle just like we've always done. Hold these dots, click and drag like this, and also hold these starting points, drag it down here, and reduce this sweep to this point. Then we're going to drag this here and make this 100, change the fill down to black and move it a little bit inward. You can also increase it so that it touches the edges of this. I'm going to then select every single one of them, the 3 shapes, and I'm going to hit Ctrl G to group it. Now we have this. I'm going to select both eyeballs also, Ctrl G to group. Now before I do that, I think I'm going to group both the eyebrows and the eye as one group, the eyebrows and the eye as one group, and I want to make sure this second group is below the first one. Then I'm going to select both of them, group together, and also select this and group together. Now we have this design. We can then move this onto this place. You can see how amazing this is. So all we have to do is to draw out this shape. So I'm going to come here, select the rectangle shape. I'm going to come here, select the rectangle shape, and just draw out a rectangle shape. I think I want to make sure the width and the height is the same, 200, 200. Then I'm going to click and drag this inside, but we have to make this above a rectangle shape. So I'm going to try to center it in the middle and probably increase the size of this rectangle. I'm going to click on this constraint proportion and make this 400. No, that's too much. 240, I guess. Yeah, and I'm also going to increase the rounded corners to 28. That's quite a lot, so I'm going to increase it to 18, and I think this is fair. I'm also going to click the fill section and change the fill to this color. So I'm going to centralize this face, so I'll move it to the edge a little bit more, and I'm going to select this rectangle shape and select this and group it together. Here I can now call this image or tune image 1. So with this, I can drag this close to this here, and we're also going to need to tilt it so that this pointy edge is facing up. So it's going to be facing up just like this, but we also don't want it to affect the face, so we are going to select the face in it and then adjust this and also scale it down a little bit. I'm going to hit K on the keyboard, which is this scale tool, and then scale this face down a little bit more and move it to the top just like this. We also need to note that this particular design, this particular first artwork, is kind of above the layer of this. So I'm going to select this and move it above of the toon image so it looks more like this, and I'm going to give this a little bit more room. So guys, I think I'm just going to leave this here because this is taking a lot of time. I'm not going to go ahead to draw out these arms and all that, but I want to believe you guys have by now have an idea on how to use some of these tools, especially like these Boolean tools. You can go ahead to play around with the ones that we didn't work on. I think we didn't use subtract or exclude, but they all work similar to what we just did. So I hope with the creation of this hero section, you'll be able to understand a lot, the shapes, the frame, the Boolean group tools. You've also been able to understand how to space elements, border radius, and usage of text and grid. So from here, we can now move on to other sections. All right, guys, so before we go to other sections of our landing page, what I'm going to do first is to increase the rounded corners of this shape to 24, 32, 36. I think this is okay. So the next thing you're going to take note of is the fact that if you look at this particular section that we created, you can see that the entire section is rounded, like the corners are rounded, only when we get to this place. And this is because the rounded corners was added to the rectangle we have and not the frame. So what we are going to do is we are going to select this frame, which is this frame here, the main blue hero section frame. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill it up with this particular blue color. So I'm going to click on fill, come to this icon selector and click on this blue fill. Now you're going to see that we don't have our rounded corners again because the rounded corners was only added to the rectangle, and the rectangle is inside the frame. So what we are going to do is we're going to take out this rectangle that we have, select the main blue frame and add the rounded corners to this main blue frame, and that corner is going to be, I think, 32 pixels that we are using for that. And as you can see now, we have these rounded corners taking effect in all sides of this square. So those are the two things we need to do. Now we can go to the next section. So before we go to the next section, I'm going to click on our desktop frame here, and I'm going to drag it all the way to the bottom, just like this, at least up to the next section. So here, the way I like to work is I'm just going to drag this all the way down, like this. So the way I like us to work is all these sections should be on a frame itself. We didn't do that for the hero section, but from the hero section down, we are going to be conscious of that. So for this next section here, first we are going to draw a frame, and then we'll put everything we want to do inside of that frame. So I'm going to go to this frame section, and I'm going to click and drag from here, and I'm just going to draw this all the way to this point. And I'm also using this section as a guide. So to start creating this section, first we need a title text, and since we have a header text here, we might want to copy that and start using that same typography settings for our title text. And I think here on the title text, it says, do you feel any of this? I'm just going to paste this, and here we can see we have 42 bold, and we're using 42 bold here, but I think this is too much for a title text, so I'm going to drop it down to 32 pixel, and I'm just going to center it to the middle of this frame. So here I'm just going to rename this to section 2, and if you want to contain all of this initial hero section in a frame, we can also do that. I'm just going to click on the frame section, select this, and drag and just draw out the entire frame just like this, and we can name this hero section. So once you take this, you can see that we have the hero section, and this section too. And we also have this first frame here, and I'm also going to rename this to navbar. I'm just going to rename this to navbar. So we have hero section, section 2, navbar. I'm just going to take the navbar to the top here, and we have them aligned on each other. So this is a really nice way to work so that you have all your sections and all your layers properly organized. So we can now start working on this section 2 items, and just like the way we've been creating our vector, to create this particular vector here is actually quite easy. We just need to select this ellipse tool. I don't think I'm going to create this like the way we created the other ones, because we've already learned how to do this from the previous designs that we've created. So you're just going to use the same idea for this. So here what you want to do is to just create 4 circles all around, just like this. Then you can also place one in the middle, just like this. Then you select all of this, all of the circle that you've created, come here and make this a union selector. Don't also forget to copy this as an SVG. Then where we want to use it in our frame here, I'm just going to paste this SVG file. I can now go ahead to delete this. So for this SVG here, I'm going to come to this selection color, of course, which is this fill. You should select it because it is wrapped in a frame. So if you select the SVG itself, you can come to this fill and give it this yellow color. We can go ahead to start creating this eye and the face of this particular thing, but I don't want us to do that since we've already done that here and we've learned how to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste in the already completed design for this. So I'm going to right click and paste to replace. So I already have this here. So you can go ahead and try it out yourself, or of course I'm going to leave a link in the description so that you can just take this asset and work with. So next is all of these pills that we have here, and then this button below. So as you can see, the pills here, I already have a list of text that we can use for those pill item. I'm going to copy this, and here I'm going to click on the text item, the text tool here, and I'm going to start writing. But I don't want this typography settings for this, so I'm going to reduce this to, let's say, regular and 16 pixel. So one thing I want to do here is to take this learning curve up a notch. So if you're new to Figma, you must have heard about auto layout, and we're going to try and use auto layout in this section. But so that you can understand how it works and the importance of using auto layouts, we are going to use it for these pills, these round pills you're going to be creating. So on writing your text here, what you want to do from here is to hit Shift A. You can see here it says auto layout added, and you can see here you also have this auto layout settings panel. So once you do this, you can see that it gives it like some kind of spacing at the top, bottom, left, and right, which is what you see here. You can see spacing. If you click on this here, you can see spacing 10 pixels on the left, top, bottom, and on the right. So, but what I want to do is to adjust the left and right spacing to be 20 pixels. So you can see here, this section says left and right, horizontal padding. I'm going to increase it to 20, and I'm also going to round up the corners to 100 pixels. So I'm going to fill this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with a random color first. Then I'm going to select the text in it. I'm going to fill the text to be white. Then I can go ahead and select the entire frame, which is this pill section, and then make it black. So now we have this auto layout frame. Why exactly did I make this section an auto layout frame? Now if we click and duplicate this, when I want to change the text of this, because we have a number of items that we are going to be putting in a pill structure, but we want it to have a structure that we can easily replicate across different pills. So let's say we have this anxiety and fear, and we want to change it to something else. Let's say depression. You can see that as soon as I start typing, this frame is you can see So let's say we want to change the text here, and I change the text here to, let's say, depression. You can see as soon as I start typing, the entire container is flexible and it's taking the shape of the content in it. So this is really important when you're using auto layout. And if you select this, you can see that the settings here is in hog content. If you change this to fixed, you won't be able to achieve that, because if I start changing the text here, it's just going to stay constant. You want to make sure this width section is on hub content, which is really important. So from here, we can now start copying our text. So we have burnout next. So I'm going to select this, create a duplicate, and I'm going to rename this to burnout. And you can see that the peel have also adjusted to the length of the text. I'm going to create another duplicate. I'm going to select this. This is going to be sleep disorder. I'm going to paste this here. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Low self-esteem. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to create a duplicate. Sorry, I'm going to create a duplicate. This is going to be sleep disorder, low self-esteem. So I'm going to go ahead to keep duplicating this and pasting in all of the text. So I'm just going to fast forward this video up to the point where I've completely copied all the text and we've had all our pills completed, so that I don't waste your time doing the same thing over and over again. So I think this is enough. I'm not going to bring in all of that. So I'm just going to randomly spread this out, just like this. I'm going to randomly spread this out. So we have something that looks like this. I think it has to be 6 on both sides so that it's balanced. So I'm going to just copy one of these and paste it here. And I'm just going to arrange this randomly on the page so that it feels balanced. I'm not going to be using the approach that was used here. I think I want to use quite a different approach to this. I'm just going to spread out these pills randomly on the page. And that's how I want this to look. Now that's one thing when you're designing, even though you're completely redesigning a particular website, it's important you try as much as possible to throw in your own ideas in order to make things look a little bit unique. And that's where stealing like an artist comes from. Although that's not what we are doing in this particular video. This particular video is meant to be a complete redesign, just to follow the exact things, but it won't hurt for you to switch things up a little bit. So for this, I'm going to leave this like this, and we are going to go next to the text and the button. So the text here says you don't have to work this part alone. So I'm going to go here, click on text and paste this. I'm going to increase this to 24 pixel. I think I'm going to make it a little bit bold, maybe medium. Then we're going to add our button. So the button says, I need help. So I'm going to paste this, and there are ways to create a button. We can create a button just like the way we've created this peel. And you can also come here, select a shape, select a rectangle shape, draw out your button like this, make your rounded corners. Let's say we're using 8 pixels for our rounded corners, or 12. You can also make the button, I think what color was used here. So we're going to pick this color, and then I'm going to click and drag our text here. But our text in our layer section has to come above our rectangle. So I'm going to draw this and position this text in the middle, and I'm going to select both the text and the rectangle and hit Command G or Control G to group this. So I'm going to move this button to the top and also the text a little bit to the top. And I think this is fine, but the text should be white, so I'm going to change the color of the text to white. I'm also going to move it down a little bit more. So this is okay. I think we have our second section all figured out, and this is looking really beautiful. I'm going to move this to the top a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. I'm going to select everything in here, all this peel, and also this vector shape. I'm going to select every single one of them and group it together so that if there's any reason we need to move this up and down, we can easily control that. So I'm going to move it to the top a little bit more, move this to the top a little bit more, and move this to the top a little bit more. And we have this section looking nice. I think I like the way this is. We can then move to the next section. So the next section is this section here that have this set of cards. And for that section, basically what we are describing is why you should trust us. That's what I want to do. So for this section, what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to turn our layout grid back on. You can notice I really didn't pay attention to the layout grid here because I can easily center our text to the middle. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to turn on the layout grid back on, and I'm going to draw out the section for our third section. So I'm going to select our desktop frame, zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to click on this frame item and I'm going to draw out another frame just for this section. Now, once I draw out this frame, I'm going to come to the fill section and I'm going to fill this frame with the respective color that we have here, which is this blue. So I'm going to select it and we have this blue section. So from here, the next thing we want to do is to obviously add the title of our section. So we already have a title text here. I'm going to create this, duplicate this title text by copying it, coming to this frame and pasting it here. But for the title here, we want the color to be white, and then we want to change the text. I believe we have a text here that says why you should trust us. So I'm going to copy this and paste this here. Now the next thing we want to have is this card that have this title and description, title and description. So I'm going to come here and copy the title here. Click on the text and paste this title. I'm also going to come here, copy the description, copy this description, hit T on the keyboard for text and also paste this. But we don't want to have the same look as the title and description, so I'm going to edit this here. In the text section, I'm going to make this regular and I'm going to reduce it to 14 pixels. I'm going to make this a little smaller and we have something like this. I'm going to select this. I'm going to reduce this letter spacing that we have on it because we only have that for title text. And I'm going to increase the line spacing a little bit more so that it's very readable. I'm then going to drag this to just adjust the sizing a little bit more. Click on this, select the title, make sure it is left aligned, then hit Ctrl G to group this. Once I've grouped this, I'm going to select a rectangle and just draw this rectangle as the card. Remember, we are going to start from where this particular layout grid starts. I'm going to draw a rectangle and I'm going to select this section, this text section inside the rectangle. Of course, we are not going to see this because it's white and you can see it's below the rectangle. So first we are going to move the group up and we are going to change the text from white down to black. So now we can see this. I'm going to select this rectangle and select the text in it and hit Ctrl G to group it. Then I'm going to create 3 copies of this, just like this. And I'm doing this so that I know where this ends, so that we can place this properly in the middle. Now I think I can go ahead to turn off the layout grid of this. So for this, I'm going to select all the rectangle here and make the rectangle white. Select this, make it white. Select this and make it white. Alright guys, so after we've gone ahead to change the background color of all the rectangles, the next thing we are going to start doing is to change the text in each of these rectangles. So I'm going to go to our content. You can see we copied the first one here. I'm going to grab the second title and I'm going to replace it with this. I'm going to make this come onto the next line, as you can see. I'm also going to move it to the top a little bit more. I'm going to grab the description text and I'm also going to replace it with this. I'm going to do the same for the third card, holistic approach. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come here. I'm going to paste this. And I'm going to do the same for the description text. So once we have this, so what I'm going to do before we go ahead is to select all these sections, the one with the title and the description for the first box, second box, and the third box. And then I'm going to move it down a little bit more, just so that we create enough room space for the images on the top. So we are going to go ahead to source for images that we are going to be using at the top, or we can as well use shapes. I think I'm just going to use shapes. We're going to go ahead to bring in an image later, but just to have a placeholder there, we're going to grab some shapes. I'm going to grab this, I think this, and also I'm going to look for one more, which is probably, I'm going to grab this. So I'm just going to copy these 3 shapes from our cool shape community file, and I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to bring it out of the artboard a little bit. Then I'm going to right click on all 3 of them and detach its instance, since they are both, or they are all components. All right, so once I've done that, I'm going to select all 3 of them and I'm going to reduce their height and weight to something like 60 so that they can fit perfectly in this direction. You can see that it's currently white, but I'm going to select all 3 of them, select this selection color and change its color to this buttons color. Then I'm going to select each of them and place them directly on each of these cards like this, and also like this. All right, so I think I like what this is looking like. So I'm going to select this rectangle, all 3 of the rectangles. Make sure you select this. I'm going to make the corners a little bit more rounded. I'm going to make it like 24. I'm going to select the other rectangle, make the corner radius 24. And I'm going to select the last one and do the same thing, make the corner radius 24. So now guys, I think I like what this why you should trust us is about. You can go ahead to add images and we'll work on that much later, but for now I'm just going to leave this as it is. Now the next section we are coming to is this section that has an image on the left and some text on the right. And for the designs we are making, I'm going to make this place and our services section where we just list the services that is being offered by this particular website. So what I'm going to do, like we've always done, is to create a frame for this section. So I'm going to come here and click on frame, and I'm going to click and drag just to create a frame. Now the next thing I want to do is to bring in an image. I notice we've not really worked on bringing in an image up till this point. So here there are a few ways you can bring an image. Just by having your frame here, you can come to this Figma icon, select it, come to file, and click on place image, right? If you click on place image, it's just going to bring this tab where you can select any image that you want. And if I select this particular image, you're going to see that it's just going to like resize it if it's too big and then paste it on your artboard. They say click or drag to place. I'm not going to click place all. So basically what it just does is it places the item on your artboard, right? So I'm going to just go back. I don't want to do that. I don't want to bring in that image. There are other ways to do this. You can also select a frame. Remember, this is a frame that we just drew on this place. You can also draw a frame, any one, and then come to this fill section, click on fill, come to fill here and select an image. You can see an icon here that says image. You can click here and select an image. It's also going to allow you to select an image just like this, but it's going to resize it to the size of the frame that you drew. So I'm going to delete this. We also don't want to bring this in. I'm going to remove this frame. So the way we are going to use this image for this particular video is to use a plugin called Unsplash, because I want to select a particular image that matches this kind of energy or this kind of description where we have a lady that is smiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this section here that says resources, and I'm going to switch to plugins, and under plugins I'm going to search for Unsplash. So Unsplash is a stock photo website where you get free images, but they also have a plugin in Figma. So I'm just going to select the plugin there from the list of plugins that we saw, and you're just going to wait for Unsplash to load up. But once it is up, you are going to see that we have the ability to search for images in Unsplash. And what I want to search for here is like an image of a lady that is smiling. So I can say smiling lady, and I'm going to click on search. So we're going to get a ton of options. I'm just going to keep scrolling till I find the one that best meets our description or what we need. So all of these images are actually really nice. They're actually really nice, but I'm going to look for something. I actually don't know exactly what I am looking for, but I'm very sure when I see it, I'm going to exactly. So I'm just going to select this. So I'm going to select this particular image. It looks something similar to this. You can see the background, the green in the background, but it's definitely not. So I'm going to resize it. I'm going to close up this Unsplash modal, and I'm going to resize this image by first holding Command, clicking and dragging, just so that I cut out. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm cropping this image. I just want to reduce the size to the aspect of the photo that I feel like we are going to use. Don't let your image be like this. This is because when I click Command or Control, if you're using a PC, and you click and you're dragging, if you release the command before you release your click on your keyboard, it's going to cause that distortion. But what you want to do is hold down Command, click and drag. Then make sure you remove your hand from the click or from the mouse before you take your hand off the Command key or the Control key. So once you have this, you can also resize this by going to the scale here or hitting on K on your keyboard, coming to the edge and resizing the image up to the size that you think it's okay. So I'm just going to place it right here. I think this is fine. I'm also going to revert back to our normal mouse key, move key, by hitting V on keyboard, and I'm going to hold Command Control and then drag down a little bit more. I'm going to hit K on the keyboard also to go back to scale, and I'm going to scale it up a little bit. Remember, we have a margin that lets us know where our content starts. So we can go back to the desktop, hit V to show this panel, and click on this grid layout so that we know where this image is going to start, which is going to be here. So once we have this, you can see that this image also have some rounded corners. I'm going to give this some rounded corners of like 24. I think that's okay. Then I'm going to select the desktop again, and before I remove the grid, I'm going to add this box, this black box here for our services, so that we know where it's going to end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, drag, and just draw out this box just like this and end it here. So what I can also do is to select this image and see that this image is, for the width, I think I'm going to make the width 600. So I'm going to hold command, click and drag to increase the width, or we can do something like 606. So if I do the same thing here and I give the width of this 606, and then we drag it to the edge a little bit more. So I think this is okay. So I'm going to select this. We give it a border corner or a corner radius of 24. I'm going to give this a corner radius of 24. And the height of this is 681. I'm going to make the height of this rectangle 681. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of them, both the rectangle and the image, and I'm going to use this align vertical center to place them on the same vertical row. So after we have this, we've already established where our content starts and where it ends. We can go back to the top of the desktop and turn off this layout grid so that we get to see what we are working on properly. So first thing is that this box here is filled with black. So I'm going to click on fill and select the black color from this. And now we have something looking like this. Now let's start working with this particular pill that we have here. So I'm going to come here and pick one of these. Since we have something similar to this, I'm just going to copy it, or hold Alt or Option, click and drag, bring it right into our frame. And inside our frame here, you can see our frame is selected here. I'm going to move it. If you notice, you can see as I select this particular frame, you can see that our image, this image is not inside the frame. If I click on this, you can see this unsplash image is outside of this frame. So I'm going to click and drag so that we don't forget. I think at some point we started naming our sections. Here we have section 2, but for this section we haven't named it. So I'm going to rename this to section 3, and I'm going to collapse it. I'm also going to collapse all of them. So we have the navbar, the hero section, the section 2. I'm going to bring section 3 down, and then this one we're working with, which is section 4. So I'm also going to rename it to section 4. You can also rename it based on what the title is. Like this section 4 now is our services. You can rename it to our services. Here it says why you should trust us. You can rename it to that. And you can rename it also to the title of the services so that it gives you a better understanding. So here in the section 4, you can see that this image is above this pill here. So I'm going to drag the pill above the image. And I'm also going to tilt it to some direction like this. So it looks like what we have here. But I think what we are going to do is we are going to tilt it more like this, right? I think I'm wrong. I'm going to change it more like this. Then we're going to create another duplicate. This one is going to be directly underneath the first one, and it's going to come like this, right? And we're going to have a third one, which is also going to be underneath everything, and it's also going to come like this. Right, so we're also going to change the colors of each. I'm going to fill this to be blue. I'm going to fill the next one to be this color, and I'm going to fill the last one to be yellow, just like this. So we have this. I think our pills are very slim. So what we can do is we can make them bigger by selecting all of them and increasing this. So for the top and bottom, we can make it 20, or we make it 16, or even 14. Then here we'll make this 28. I like to make the padding on the left and right like twice the size of the padding of the top and bottom. So we won't have the same text as we have here. I think we'll just rename this text, trying to show the expression of this woman here. We can say here is mental balance. Here we have happiness, and here we have career accomplishments. So just showing somebody who is happy with their lives, basically. I think that's the whole concept of this. So we're just going to make it something like this. So guys, once we have this, the next thing we want to do is to start adding text for our services section. So I'm going to hit T on the keyboard and I'm just going to type services. And for this, I'm going to make it bold and 18 pixel or 16. 16 pixel is actually not bad. And I'm going to remove this letter spacing. But then we are going to have a subtitle text. Then we're going to go into the list of services. So I'm going to go to our documents where we have our content all out. Then I'm going to select this. I think this is the subtitle text. I'm going to hit T on the keyboard and paste it here. For this, I want to make it really big, so I'm going to make it 48 pixel. And then I'm going to reduce it to just fit perfectly here. Then next, we can go ahead and paste in our list of services. But I'm going to select this and reduce the letter spacing also to make it look really nice. Then I'll go ahead to select all of the services that we have here. I'm going to hit T and paste this, but we don't want them to be this bold, so I'm going to make it 18 pixel, and I'm going to increase the line spacing between them, just like this. As you can see here, we have some kind of diamond shape for this. We can also achieve that by selecting one of these diamonds that we use here. I think this particular one at the top. I'm going to select it, bring it down here, and paste this here. I'm going to make it a lot smaller. Then, and to make it reduce that size, I hit K on the keyboard, just like this. I hit K on the keyboard. Before I was on V, which was the move tool. So I hit K to go to the scale tool. If you try to move it to the move tool like this, you get it distorted, and this is not what we want. So you hit K on the keyboard, then move it so that it becomes uniform when it is scaling. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to hit V on the keyboard back so that I can see all the properties of this. And I'm going to turn off the fill and turn on the stroke. For stroke, I want it to be filled with white, and I want to increase the stroke from 1 to 2. So once I have this, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to create multiple instances by holding Alt or Option if you're using a Mac, and dragging down to create a duplicate, just like this. So guys, we have our services section. Okay, I think the next thing we are going to work on here is this sections that shows like testimonials. That's what our clients are saying about us. So just like every other section, we're going to go and click on the frame, click and drag to draw out a frame for that particular section. And this section, as you can see, is filled with this yellow color. So we are going to select the fill and click on this item here, and then select this yellow color. Now we are going to have to put the title of this section. So once we go to our content, you can see this is what our clients are saying about us. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to close this. I'm just going to rename this and paste the text here. I'm going to resize this text to what text have we been using for title. I think it's 32. So I'm going to use it for the title. Make sure your title text in terms of size and weight are consistent, which is really important. So it gives your design a consistent look. So we can say this is what our clients are saying about Sunshine Harmony Therapy. And I'm going to increase this, and I'm going to center it. So here I'm also going to center this to the middle, center align the text. Then I'm just going to place it right in the middle. You can see where this line is showing. So we're just going to paste it right in the middle. Next, we want to start creating something like this. So to start creating this, it's going to be very similar to what we have here. So what we can do is we can take this whole section here, hold Alt or Option on your keyboard, click and drag, so we can have a duplicate of this. Right? You also notice that this didn't come with it, and this is because we didn't group this icon with the boxes, and I think we should do that now. So I'm going to select this box and select this icon, and I'm going to hit Ctrl G to group it. But before I do that, I'm going to revert back, click undo. Before I do that, I'm going to select all the icons here and make sure they are center aligned. So I'm going to click on this to make sure they are center aligned, and I'm going to shove them to the top a little bit more. So what I can do is click on this group, select the item also, and group it together with Ctrl G. Click on this, hold Shift, click on this, then group together with Ctrl G. Click on this, select this, both of them, and group together with Ctrl G. So we have these three boxes and the title here in this section 3, right here. So here we have similar design here, where we have, but we don't have like a title of this. So I'm going to right click and ungroup this. So I'm going to remove this particular personalized care title, and I'm going to move this text to the top a little bit, and I'm going to go to this section and copy one of these testimonials, because this is like the testimonial section. I'm going to paste it here, and you can see we also have a little bit of text down here, basically the name of the person and probably their age and what they do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on T or tap T on the keyboard and type a random name. Let's type Anna, for instance. I'm going to select this and make it bold. Then I can say 24 years, and this person is a web developer. I'm going to select this and revert back to this, and then just shove this at the top a little bit. So you can click on both of these and group it by hitting Command G, just like we did. So once we have this, what we want to do is to add this diamond shape. I think we've used this diamond shape quite a lot on this website. So I'm going to go to grab this from the top here, and I'm going to come to this group and paste it here. Right, you can see that it's not showing, and that's probably because it's white, like the contents of this is white. So I'm going to change the color to this particular color selection that we have here. So I'm going to adjust it to the middle, and then click on our rectangle and reduce the size a little bit. So once we have this, I'm going to create a duplicate, or before I duplicate this, I'm going to select everything in here. As you can see, this is a group, and I think that's fine. So I'm going to duplicate this. I wanted to group them together, but I see that everything is grouped. I'm going to hold Option or Alt, click and drag to create a duplicate. So I have another testimonial here, so I'm going to copy this and paste it right here. So you can also change the name here to Joseph. I can say he is 44 and he is a, let's say, illustrator. So you can have testimonials like this. I'm just going to duplicate this first one. So now you can see that this rectangle seems like it's coming out, it's closer to the walls than every other content, and that's not what we want. So quickly we are going to go back to turn on our layout column and make sure our items align properly. So I'm going to just bring this to the middle, and I'm going to move this to the edge. Then I'm going to select this and all the other items and make sure I tidy them up like this. Then here you can see there's an even spacing between them. So that's one way to create even spacing between items. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to turn off this layout grid. And you can see we have almost all our sections all sorted out. Here we have our testimonial section. I'm just going to name it to testimonial. You can see that the naming conventions of our sections is not consistent, and that might be something you want to be conscious of, right? You want to be conscious of. Here we are having navbar hero section, then we have section 1, 2, 3. It's either you use 1, 2, 3 or you use the name of all the sections. So for this section here, which is the section 4, I can notice that these vectors that we used here, they are all outside of this rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this rectangle and select all the text in it also, and also select all the icons. This is done by holding down Shift and clicking on every single one of them. You can also achieve this by holding down Command, depending on what you use to multi-select on your system. Then after selecting everything, I'm going to hit Command G or Control G to group them together so that we don't have random items on the screen. So you can now see that this group that we just grouped is now outside its frame, which is section 4. So I'm going to click on the group and drag it back into section 4. So our layout is now looking very clean. We have our navbar, we have our hero section, we have section 2, 3, 4, then testimonial section, just like this. You want to make sure you're understanding the layout of this as well as the design, because sometimes when some of your elements are missing or they are not visible, you can easily understand what's going on from the layers panel. This layers panel can actually tell a lot about what is happening in your designs. So far so good. We've been able to design about 6 sections and we have 3 more to go. If you're just starting out in UIUX design and you followed up to this point, I must say you have done really great and you've learned a lot in terms of organizing your designs. Although there are a lot of things that could be better, but because this is a beginner-friendly tutorial, we are just going to take it really slow. So for this next section, this is our FAQ section. And just like the way we've done for other sections, I'm going to click on a frame, click and drag to draw out a frame. And for this frame, I'll quickly name it FAQ so that we don't forget. I'm going to quickly name it FAQ and I'm going to drag it to the bottom. So once we have this, the next thing we are going to do is to copy a title text because we want to keep the title consistent. And here I'm going to say frequently asked questions. So now we have this frequently asked question and we want to create this particular accordion menu. So you can actually create this accordion menu and it's going to be animated, but this is a beginner friendly tutorial and we're just going to create the look of this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our content and then pick a question title like this. I'm going to copy it and come to our section here, hit T on the keyboard, click and paste what I have. So for this, I want this to be 14 pixel, right? So it's going to be 14 pixel. And I also want this drop down icon that shows that you can open that menu and close it. So to do that, I'm also going to go to the plugin section by clicking on resource, coming to plugins, and here we want to launch the Iconify plugin, just like we did. And I'm very sure we'll be able to get that particular icon from the Iconify plugin. All right, so once our plugin is loaded up, we're just going to go ahead to search for that arrow down icon. So I'm going to start from the beginning because the Iconify plugin will load up from where we left off. And I'm going to just scroll to find that particular arrow icon that we need. So I think this works, or this, yeah, so I'm just going to select this and click on import icon. I'm going to close this up and drag the icon. You can see it's imported here. I'm just going to drag the icon into our frame. So the next thing we're going to do here is to flip this icon. You can see that it's facing up. I'm going to right click and then flip vertically. So the next thing is to go and bring like a rectangle. I'm going to draw a rectangle just like this. And for this rectangle, I'm going to bring this icon down here But you can see that this rectangle is above the layers of this text, so it's making it difficult to see. So what we can do is to click on this rectangle and bring it down below every other thing. So I'm going to select this title text also and bring it in just like this. So I'm going to select this rectangle shape, and I'm also going to give it a rounded corner of like 8 pixels. And I'm also going to change the color to look something like this. So I'm going to select this, come to fill and select this particular color. I think I'm going to increase the size of the rectangle a little bit more and then take this icon to the far right a little bit more. So once I have this, I'm going to select the rectangle here. I'm going to select the icon also and then select the text. Once I have all three of them selected, I'm going to hit Ctrl G or Command G to group them, and then I'm going to start duplicating this. I'm going to hold Alt to create a duplicate, hold Alt or Command, hold Alt or Option, create a duplicate. I'm going to have 3 duplicates of this. I'm going to make the spacing 20, and then I'm going to also hold Alt, create a duplicate to make this 6 FAQs. We're not going to bother much about the contents of each of these FAQs, but we're just going to leave it like this since we have our FAQ section all sorted out. So I think this is mostly it for FAQ sections. You can click on all 3 like this and group it together. Click on all 3 of this and group it together and draw them closer if you want them to be closer. So for this, while you can also make it span the entire width like this, you can also make them centralized. But it's really advisable you give it as much width as possible because some titles are usually like longer than others, right? So because we are not going to be going ahead to rename every single title of this, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So one way you can do this to avoid having to have like a repetition or having to make changes is the use of components. I know we've not talked about components. We've talked a little bit about auto layout earlier, and we've not talked about components. And I think this is a good example to introduce components to you guys. I know this is a little bit of a complex topic, but it will really help your design. So I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to select this and ungroup this, right? And I'm going to remove these two. So if you find this next step really confusing, you can just stick to this first option that we did here. But if you want to advance your design skill, I'm going to advise that you follow along with this second step in order to create this. So first, I'm going to leave this to be only one, just like this, only one group. Then I'm going to right click, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ungroup this. So once I ungroup this, I'm going to click on the rectangle that we are using here and delete it. So I want to show you guys the proper way to create an item like this, that you have like 6 duplicates of it, right? Just like the way we created this pill using auto layout. But there is something that we can do better, which is the use of components that I'm about to introduce to you. So if you select this text and I hit shift and select this, so we have these two selected. The first thing we want to do is to create an auto layout on this by hitting shift A, right? Auto layout makes it so that once we have a text that is a lot longer than this particular section keeps growing. So if I fill this auto layout frame with, let's say, a random color, let's just use something like this, and I'm removing the text that I added here, just like this, you can see that it is scaling down, and if I keep adding, it is scaling up. That is one very important thing that auto layout does, and we are doing this because once we have more than one duplicate of this, the title might change. So for instance, here we have what should I expect during my first session. If I duplicate this and I go to our content and I grab another topic and I say what type of therapy is this, and I just grab this long text up to this point and I come here to paste it, you can see that this grows automatically without us having to adjust the rectangle, trying to move the arrow or the accordion arrow to the far right and all of that. So this is what auto layout actually does for us. So, but this is not looking really great. What we want to do is to add some padding on the top, bottom, left, and right. So I'm going to hold Command and click to add padding all around. And padding all around I want to add is 10 pixel. But for the left and right, I want to increase it to 20. So once I have this, I'm going to make the rounded corners 8. This is similar to what we did with the rectangle, but we are making these changes on the auto layout frame rather than a rectangle. So once we have this, I'm going to change the fill back to this color that we were using. So I'm going to click on this and just put it here. Now, coming to the concept of components. A component is basically a reusable element. So we are going to be having multiple instances of this. And we want to be able to make changes on a single one and it affects every other one. I'm going to show you guys. So first, let's make this first one a component. I'm going to come here and click on this item that says create component, and I'm going to create it as a component. Now, once you have this as a component, we are going to remove this from the actual creation environment. We are not going to be using this here in our FAQ. Instead, we are going to create a duplicate, which is to copy it, come here and paste it. Now, what you have here is what we call the instance of a component. So this is the instance, this duplicate here is the instance of this component. And why do we have the instance of this component? Imagine we have this. Let me show you guys. Imagine we have like 3 of this, or in short, we have 6 of this. We've created all 6 of this, and we realize that, oh, in our designs, what we want to do is to give this item a stroke. We don't want to go to each and every one of them and be giving them a stroke. What we can do is select the main component here. Let me bring it into this artboard, even though it's not inside, so that we can all see it. What you want to do is to select this main component here, and then add the stroke to it. You can now see that every other instance now has the stroke. That is basically the function of a component. A component just allows you to create changes on one element, and it affects on every single element that is the same, which in this FAQ session is typically the use of auto layout, because you can see that all of this is the same. The only thing that changes is the text. So with this instance, you can go ahead, come here, we can copy our second text. Let's just copy this and paste this here. Can come here, copy the third text. How do I schedule an appointment? And paste it here. Now you can see that these things are being responsive and the sizes of this are different. I'm going to delete all this here. And the sizes of these are different. And this is because if you click on this main component, it is in hog content. And basically what hog content does is that it reduces the size of the frame to the size of the content, basically. So what you can do to change this is to come here and change this to fixed width. So with fixed width, you can now see that everything is the same width. But still we have our arrow or navigation arrow here, or our drop down arrow here, not being equal. To fix this, what you can now do is to come to this auto layout section and change this spacing, because here we have a fixed spacing of 80 pixels. So the space between this text and this is 80 pixels, the space between this, so it's consistent. Even though there is more space, it doesn't really care about that. So what we are going to do is we're going to change this to auto, and you can now see that everything looks really nice. So this is the main use of auto layout, and I really implore you to try as much as possible to learn a lot about auto layout. I have videos on auto layout, and I have videos on components and component properties, which we might be going to in more advanced videos. But for this, we just need to understand that the main use of component is to create instances that once you make changes on this component, it takes effect on both on all the instances. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to remove the stroke here. I can see that it takes effect on all of this. I'm going to select this and duplicate this, just like this. So in a situation like this, where we see that this, I'm going to select all of this and group them together, select all of this and group them together. Select all of this and group them together. So in a situation like this, where we want this content to start from the beginning here and end here, just like the way the design is made here, what we are just going to do very easily is to come to our desktop here, turn on our layout grid, go back to this section and make sure on this, we are increasing this. And then we select this and take it to the right and place this right here. We can still increase it a little bit more and make it look something like this. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the layout grid. As you can see, before I turn it off, it starts from where our grid starts and ends at where the grid ends, which is what we are trying to achieve. So I'm going to click on the desktop and turn off the layout grid. So you can now see that we achieved something like this very easily. If we are not using this component and we use the other approach that have rectangle, we are going to have to go to each rectangle one after the other and then increase it and then make changes to the drop down arrow and then edit every single thing, and it's going to take a lot of time. So this approach of components is very amazing, and I am glad you have learned how to use components. So from the FAQ section, the next thing we want to create is this call to action section, and we are almost done with this website. So to do that, just like the way we have been doing, I'm going to click on the frame and I'm just going to draw out the section for this, just like this, right? So I'm going to fill it up because you can see that it is filled with this blue color. And the next thing I want to do is to bring in this image. So we have something similar, even though it's not the same thing. We have something similar here. I'm just going to copy this here. But I think the face of this particular square seems better. So I'm going to copy this face and I'm going to come here and replace it with the face that we have here. So looking at this, it seems as if I can just duplicate this vector out of this, remove this, and paste in the face that we copied here, and put it, and just fit it right in here. So I'm going to enlarge this by hitting K on the keyboard and make this bigger, clicking on this and bringing it here, just like this. So even though it's not the same thing, I think the energy is quite similar. So I'm going to also change. First, I'm going to select both of them, group them together, and bring it into this frame. Then I'm going to change the color of this yellow. I'm going to change it to this particular color here. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger. What if I switch this face to be flip horizontal and it's like this? Okay, this is not so bad. And I'm just going to increase this so that it covers the entire page and look something like this. I think this is okay. So once we have this, the next thing is to add our text. I'm going to also go and copy our text from here, call to action text. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. So this, I'm going to make it big, 32 pixel. I'm going to also make it bold. I'm going to reduce it. I'm still going to make this quite a bit bigger. Let's see, 42. I think I'm going to make this big. Then I'm going to have a subtext that says book a free 15 minutes call with a specialist. I'm going to also paste that here. Definitely not going to be this big. I'm going to do 16 and I'm going to reduce this. Once you have this, the next we want to have is a button that says book the call. So I'm going to go ahead to pick this button that we created up here and paste the button here. But just like the design, this is a black button and the text says I want to change my life. So I'm going to come here and change the text to that. I'm going to reduce the text to 16 pixel I'm going to increase this rectangle a little bit more and position the text to the middle. Click on this and make this black. So we have this call to action section, all nice. The last thing we need to do is to create our footer, but we also need to rename this to call to action. And I also want to bring it to the bottom of the page so that we can arrange everything linear. So we can arrange everything from top to down. So the next is going to be the footer. So I'm going to click on a frame like we've always done here and draw out a footer. Of course, like what we are working on, the footer is going to be black. So I'm going to select this black color, and then we can go ahead to start adding all the items on the footer. I'm going to move this to the top of the page so we don't get confused. And I'm also going to shift this a little bit to the side. So guys, for the footer, you can see here we have the brand name. I'm going to go ahead and copy the brand name. But before I do that, I want to add a brand logo to what we have. And I think I'm just going to copy this shape here. Yeah, I'm going to copy this shape here as the brand logo. All I did was select, click deep until I get to this vector, which is the shape, then hold Control or Command to duplicate. So I'm just going to get this. I'm going to hit K and scale it down. Then I'm also going to bring it in to where we have the brand identity so that it serves as the logo for what we are working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this and drag it into the group where we grouped all of this together and move this text forward a little bit more, then add this to the side. So this looks like a complete package for the brand identity. Even though I know that this font is too plain for a logo, we can look for something a lot more interesting. So I might just let it go. So here, I'm going to copy both of this, the logo and the text. I'm going to copy this and paste it in our footer. But this time, I'm going to change the color, the black color here, to white. So this serves as our logo or our brand identity. I'm going to copy both of them, select both of them rather, and hit Ctrl G on the keyboard. Now, once we have this, the next we want to do is to add all of these items. And to add all of these items, I don't know what those items are, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say links for the first item title. I'm going to reduce this to 18 pixel, or I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put it at the top here. Then I'm going to create a duplicate and say, so this is going to be like short links to different pages, services, about us, and contact us. I'm going to select all of this, make it 14 pixel, increase the line spacing between them, and also select this link and then position it at the top a little bit. I'm also going to position this logo at the top. I'm also going to click this and duplicate this. And instead of links here, I might say address, so we can look at, so we can say this is address. Increase this a little bit more. And for this address, we're going to say number 4, some random address in an amazing location. So this is just going to be our address. Of course, you're going to use a real address if you're working on an actual website. Then the next, as you can see here, we have is websites, email, and then the socials. We can do the same thing here. You copy this, click here, or we don't have to copy any of these actually. We can just take the text and rename it to info@sunshineharmony.com. Increase this, then we can add some social media links. And to do that, of course, we are also going to go to our plugins and open up Iconify. And in our Iconify, we can search for WhatsApp. WhatsApp icon. We can just pick the first one we see here. We can also search for Instagram. We can pick any one of these. And sometimes you might have difficulty knowing where it was pasted, but you can see, lucky enough, I could find them here. I'm just going to go ahead to change the selection color to white so that it's visible. And I'm going to just drag them down to this area. So here we can just put a WhatsApp icon, hit K on the keyboard to increase this, Instagram, and then we can have one more. Let's see, one more. Maybe Twitter, I think. Let's see Twitter. Okay, let's take this Twitter icon. Oh, I almost forgot that it's now X. So let's take this X icon. Let's take this X icon here. We can cut it, paste, and this is it. So I'm just going to bring it here. Hit K on the keyboard, scale it up a little bit more, select all three of them, just like this, and center align them. So next to this, we can also have our copyright claims. So I'm going to select all of this here, all this that we just created here. I'm going to select this and hit Ctrl G to group this, and then move it to the top a little bit. You can see that this group is not inside our frame, it's just on the desktop. I'm just going to remove it and then drag it back into the frame just so that it fits perfectly. So here also we can also have our copyrights. I'm going to select all of this and move them to the far right or to the far left, then take this and use to create our copyrights, right? So for copyright, we're just going to say copyright (2024) Sunshine Harmony. And if you want to check if your footer also has gone beyond our set scale in terms of layout, you can turn on the layout, come here and make sure it's all aligned. You can see where this starts from and you can see where this ends. So you can just click on this and drag it here. So guys, this is it. This is how you create a website in Figma. This tutorial has been geared towards absolute beginners. A recap of what you've learned is you've been able to work with frames, you've been able to work with shapes, rectangles, you've understand colors, you've been able to work on bringing items from the community. We've been able to look at these Boolean operators here that lets us create this beautiful artwork. You've been able to learn about spacing. You've been able to learn about how you can bring in images. You've talked about auto layout. We've also talked about components. As you can see here, the components was what we used to create the FAQ section. And you can see how we can use or shuffle different elements to create different visuals, just like what we create here on this call to action menu. So thank you guys for watching. I know this video have been a little bit lengthy, but if you're starting out with Figma, you actually need to go into details to understand some aspects of these things. And as you grow, there are going to be faster approaches to create these things, because all of these things that we've created, 80% of the workload can actually be achieved faster when you really master auto layout. I'm glad you've been able to understand this. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, you can leave the comments in the comment section and I'm going to answer all your questions. Also, don't forget to follow me on my social media handles, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also share this video to friends or people who are interested in learning Figma and UI/UX design. But for now, bye for now, and I'm going to see you guys in my next video.